Hey, practice owners, we're back for another edition of Coming Back Stronger. A lot of you are going to recognize our guest for this episode, Dr. Len Tau, who does, it would take the entire podcast to list what Len does. But so at the top of the list would be, he's famous for the Raving Patients podcast. Len is sort of the reviews doctor on online reviews and that sort of thing, but he really started in marketing, strategic marketing. And I know that's, he and I've talked in the past, sometimes late at night on the things. You can tell there are people who sort of get jazzed about it. And he's one of them. He has a book, Raving Patients, that you can get. Len, is that on Amazon? They still get that there?
They can get it on Kindle on Amazon. The actual book releases in July. It's not available quite yet, but it's on Kindle on Amazon right now.
Okay, awesome. So with that, our guest, Dr. Len Tau, just outside of Philadelphia. And on top of that, as if he weren't busy enough, he still practices dentistry. So, Len, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You look nice and cozy quarantined. Got the whole studio set up.
Yeah, this is where I do my my podcast. I have a bunch of lights shining on me. You can't see them, but I have lights on me. So I do my podcast. I've been doing a daily video cast during the quarantine to kind of inform the audiences. I kind of transitioned away from the podcast to make it more timely with the Facebook Live. So we're still doing the podcast, but now we're doing daily Facebooks.
Awesome. And I know, so you and I've talked before, and my personal opinion is that a practicing doc, even if you practice a day a week or two or something, it gives you a little bit more credibility with an audience like this of practice owners who are not, our audience is typically sole practice owners. They might start taking in an associate, they might start a group and it's 4 of them. But it's not, they're not building, a $1 billion dental organization. They still, are very connected with the patients. So I think that's important in what you do. Are you, are you seeing emergency patients right now?
I am, yeah. So I am I have an associate who works 2 days a week. I travel so much. I only work Mondays and Tuesdays normally, but I still see some emergencies. I mean, last day I worked was March 17th myself. So we've been out of practice now just about a month, but I have been in the practice six times. I've seen about 7 patients. I've kind of triaged the emergencies to have gone in for. There's some I have not gone in for just because I didn't think it was a true emergency. But my patients are free to call me. They know they have my number. I do have an answering service who's personally answering the calls. So they're sending me the transcripts of the calls. I'm reaching out to the people I feel I need to reach out to, letting them know that we're open for emergencies. And then I'm speaking to them on the phone and deciding who I'm needing to go in to see. Other ones, I'm just telling them, hey, this is how you treat your problem. And I'm not going in. I will not go in for new patient emergencies, though. Right. I'm only treating existing patients. The new ones I'm doing virtual dentistry, but I'm not charging for it. Okay. I made the decision. I don't feel comfortable charging someone $40 or $50 to talk to them on the phone when I do normally free consults anyway. So I've just made the professional decision just to speak to these people and refer them to an oral surgeon or endodontist. But like I said, I've gone in, I think 5 or 6 times. I pick up the mail, I call some insurance companies. I make it a few hours in my office, but I've gone in a couple times, unfortunately.
I think that's important too. I've had, we talked beforehand. There are docs from every end of the spectrum, docs who haven't really slowed down much and just, plow on through and do however they define emergency. And then there are docs who say, well, we're quarantined, so I'm going to go home, work on the yard and watch Netflix. And then a lot in between. And I think it's the ones in between that we want to talk to today, and sort of the context of coming back stronger, as opposed to, again, watching Netflix and getting your yard in shape and then thinking that, there's a switch that gets flipped. I've heard people define it as less of a switch and more of a dimmer switch. And whenever that happens, and right now nobody knows when that's going to happen, but we still have the opportunity to work on our business, our practice, when we're not able to work in our practice. So that's what reason I reached out to you was, I know you're specifically in the marketing strategic side of it, but also on the review side of it, maybe you've got some things that a practice owner who's watching or listening, and they're not catching up on Game of Thrones. They're making good use of their time watching us today, Len. Some things that they can do right now that are, just like going in, working on their business. Maybe some tips to do today, and maybe lay groundwork for later, for when they do get back.
Yeah, no, I have actually given a couple of webinars through various organizations about, working on your business while at home. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the things to start with, specifically when it comes to reviews. So number one, I want to kind of start off by saying, up until, right after COVID started, Google made an announcement that they were not letting reviews that were new kind of be published, and they weren't letting review responses be published either. Okay. Up until last week, that was the way it was. And then they announced that they were letting review responses be published. So you can now respond to reviews, and they can be old reviews, and they will be published a lot faster than they were in the past. And so that's something that you can do. You can go through and read your reviews, and you can start responding. One of the other things that changed was that the president kind of waived HIPAA and restrictions of HIPAA, partially because of all the virtual dentistry and telemedicine that was being done. But I would urge you on the side of caution to be careful when you still do respond to the reviews, because that's going to go back at some point where they're going to still have those restrictions in place. So you don't want to have these responses where you're obviously responding in a way that HIPAA was kind of violated, and it's in a public way, public fashion. So I would still be very careful in responding to these reviews, because it will be in a public forum. So you can ask your patients, and this is a great time to send out an email, send out a text to them when you have them on the phone, if you are checking in with them. So when I go to my office and I spend time in there, I am calling some of my patients to check in to see how they are doing. I always would recommend you check in and see how they're doing, and then send them a review request as part of your daily routine, so they can leave a review for you. And that's a great, just part of customer service. So that's 100% what I recommend people do, and then go through the reviews and do respond to some of them, because I think it's a great way of doing customer service for your practice.
So sort of a reach out. Hey, we care. I know your appointment is the end of the week, and I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you can share. I know that there are a lot of docs who are just scheduling, so they're doubling up 3 months from now or 2 months from now. What they're not doing is saying, well, you know what, we're 6 months out anyway, so let's just skip this one and put you in October. So
what I'm doing is I'm actually calling. I actually furloughed my team, so I am doing it myself. I am not that busy of a practice in terms of I'm a more of a boutique style practice, so I don't have tons of patients to call. So I call them myself. I just let them know that, due to COVID, we are canceling their appointments. And I tell them that just because of the uncertainty, I do not want to reschedule them. But once we know the way the schedule is going to be, we will then reach out and then reschedule them. I don't want to book them 2 months ahead or a month ahead, because we just don't know when we're going to be reopening. Right. And they all understand that. Some of them just don't even want to reschedule, even if they just tell me, I don't want to reschedule yet. And I certainly understand that. But I'm calling them.
Do you follow up with an email? I guess where I was going was, if you follow up with an email, it says, hey, glad awesome, we talked today, and again, feel free to do an online review. What you're looking at are reviews that say, oh my gosh, Dr. Tau called me and, just cared. And so it's an opportunity to generate a review.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, after I call them, I do just send them an email saying, thanks for speaking with me today. Just to remind you, your appointment on this date is canceled. And we will call you to reschedule. And by the way, here's an opportunity to rate your experience. And so we do give them an opportunity via correspondence to rate and review their experience. So yes, we are reaching them. We're doing what's called an outreach to them to provide feedback on their experience, which gives them an opportunity to write a review on Google or Facebook.
So kind of make the most of it now, or
Correct.
while you're not seeing patients.
Correct.
You reminded me of this. This was 4 weeks ago. That had a doc in a conversation. It was a group thing. Was telling me about a conversation that they had where a dentist practice owner, and this was early on, didn't even know, had never seen reviews before. And, you know, you hear reviews and they're out there. And I think a lot of practice owners of a certain vintage maybe don't understand the impact of online reviews in new patients. That the percentages, and I'm sure you know these off the top of your head, but it's the vast majority of patients are finding their doc online, the new doc. And number two, they are basing it on reviews. So it's a situation where the first thing they go, you know, my wife is that way. When we travel, first place she goes is Yelp. If we're going to eat, she'll go to Yelp. And if it's 3.5, 4 stars, she just goes right past it. And it could be the greatest place on earth, but she just goes right past it. So I think maybe if you could spend a second and explain that to the practice owners who aren't of the online world and don't realize the impact of that, and that they're being reviewed out there somewhere now, period, whether they set it up or not.
Yeah, so we're in a reputation society. I mean, no matter what you do, and you mentioned it, people are reading reviews no matter what you think about reviews yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and remember, reviews started way back when with thumbs up and thumbs down with Siskel and Ebert. It was a form of reputation. So if you got a thumbs down, people weren't coming to see you. In fact, studies show that 48% of people won't use your business with less than 4 stars. Okay, but you don't want 5 stars either. If you have 100 reviews and they're all 5 stars, something's not right, because there's no such thing as a perfect business.
Right.
Okay. And I say a dental practice is not perfect. It's perfect when you deal with feedback perfectly. So having all 5-star reviews is fake in my mind. So the perfect score to me is somewhere between 4.6 and 4.9. Okay. So you're going to have some negative feedback about your business online. So that's just normal. All right. So what I recommend you do is I recommend you reach out to all your patients, get feedback from them. You're going to end up with some negative feedback on something, whether it was the way you answered the phone, or whether it was patient didn't like the way you handle their insurance. It's going to happen, but you have to have reviews for your business, because otherwise they're going to turn patients away. So that we are in a reputation society, and that's just the nature of the beast. So if you're in practice 30 years and you have 5 reviews, that's ridiculous. I mean, I was talking to a dentist on Friday who was in practice 38 years and had 1 review. And he was like, he understands he has no reputation, you know? So when you are a new business just starting out, the first thing you should do before you open your doors, before you market your practice, is make sure you have reviews for your patients, because your marketing isn't going to work. So that is the most important part of your business, is your reputation.
Oh, absolutely. And in this case, so the reason this came up in a conversation that this doc found out about online reviews is he was still seeing patients, and that might have been emergencies, might not have been. Who knows the details? Nobody stops to dig through the details. But somebody went by his practice, took a picture, and there was a patient walking in the door, no mask, just walking in like regular. And I dig it out, but somebody taking a picture, posted it on, it might've been Yelp, might've been Google, I don't remember where, but they had put the caption like, "Are you kidding me?" an exclamation mark and all this kind of junk. And this guy said, well, gosh, I didn't, she was coming in for this and that and the other. It doesn't matter. What they see in that quick second when they're trying to find a new doc is this big negative thing, and now you're you're going viral, and you have no control over it in a sense. Do you see a lot of that? Do you see any of that now going on?
You know what? I don't see a lot of it, only because, as I mentioned, is that Google is not really letting much feedback online to prevent this type of issue. So they preempted it, because they didn't want people posting stuff that nobody could kind of go in and fight up against. So I'm not seeing much of this right now. I'm seeing some comments made on the internal systems that people have, which don't have the same way of controlling, where they're mad that the dentists are not seeing somebody posted in one, I think it was coronavirus against dentists against coronavirus. There's a group, and somebody posted one of their internal software programs. Someone gave a nasty review because they were canceling their appointments, and the patients didn't understand why. But that wasn't on Google. It was an internal review that nobody sees except the practice. So I'm seeing some of those, but I'm not seeing anything out there in, you know, we're in cyberspace where patients who are looking at the practice can actually see it, because the programs like Yelp, like Google, have made the conscious effort to prevent patients from being able to do that.
Which is, you know, smart and fortunate in this hyper news cycle sharing age. So if there's a practice owner who is watching and listening and says, you know, I've heard about reviews, I'm sitting at home, and they haven't really done much in, you know, with their reviews, they may have checked, they may not have checked. They might have told their office manager to check. And maybe she checked or maybe she didn't check. But they realize that as we come back, they need to pay some attention. So because online is becoming where patients find docs, where they find out about docs, where they look at docs. They go on Facebook and look at your Facebook page. And, you know, so that's how they're finding you. So somebody who is kind of starting from scratch, what could they do right now while they're, you know, not seeing patients to sort of get that ball rolling and educate themselves on reviews?
Well, I think the first thing they should do is they should look themselves up online. So do a Google search for their business, their name of their business, their name, and see what other people are saying about themselves. I think that's number one. Once they do a Google search for themselves, again, their name and their business name, look up dentists in their zip code, look up dentists in their town, and see where they're ranking online. They do want to show up on the map of Google. So there's a map that's related to any, you know, search term with location. So dentist and their town. There's a map of 3 dentists that show up. If they're not there, well, that's a problem, because that's the visibility part. You want to be visible. If you're not visible, you have to figure out why. One of the searches that they can do is they can look at a website called Yext, YEXT.com. So Yext.com is a citation site. A citation is the name, the address, and phone number of a practice. Okay. Google wants the name, the address, and phone number to be consistent. Okay. The more consistent these citations are, generally the higher the practice will rank on the maps of Google. Okay. So they can go on to Yext.com. They put their name as seen on Google. Okay. You want to match Google and their phone number, and Yext will run a scan of their listings. And you want the scan to be as close to 100% as possible. Okay. So if you're 20%, it's really low. If you're 60%, it's average. If you're 85 or 90%, you're doing really, really well. But the more consistent you are, closer to 100%, generally the higher you're going to rank. Okay. If you're low, the lower you're going to rank on these maps. So that's the premise behind this. So if you're really low, you've got to fix these listings. And you got to combine that with a lot of reviews. That's generally how you rank higher on these maps. So that's kind of the visibility and credibility. The more reviews you have, the more credible you are. The better listings you have, the more visible your practice is going to be on these maps. So that's generally the kind of the missing recipe behind being found online, is what I usually tell people. So they can look themselves up online. They can look themselves on the maps of Google. They can run this scan, and that will kind of give them a good idea of the first step into online marketing. Because if they're not found, they have no reviews, then they've got to start with that process first before they should do any other marketing online.
Before they, you know, your website. So I've heard people say, you know, they've got the most beautiful website that nobody ever finds. So, you know, spend all this money on your website and no money on how to get somebody to look at it or see it or to be able to click. And I also read a percent or a number on the percentage of people who appoint immediately once they're online. So they'll you know, they search and on a device. Not, you know, so don't set it up for a gigantic website. Set it up so that when they're looking at this and they say dentist Philadelphia, and they see somebody and they say, oh, I know this person. They're right up the street from me. They've got 4.5-star reviews. They click, and you want them to immediately be able to click and call your phone. So that's how they appoint. They see it, they click it, they call and say, hey, I'd like to come in for an appointment. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, call to action. Yeah. And I get a lot of people, and you kind of mentioned it, that they want to make an appointment. They want to appoint. You got to make it as easy as possible. And they have a website that they spend lots of money on. Okay. Or they want to get a new website and they want to spend money on a new website, yet they're not visible or credible. Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. If you're spending $5,000 on a new website, yet have limited reviews and you're not found on the maps, well, if you have a brand new website that nobody finds, you just wasted $5,000. So I tell people, don't get a new website quite yet until you have the visibility and credibility, because you're wasting your money. Fix the visibility and credibility first, then spend the money on the website, because the ROI on the website is going to be significantly better. So when I'm doing demos for Berta, they say, well, I'm going to wait a few months. I'm going to get a better website first. And I'm like, you're looking at it entirely wrong. Get the visibility and credibility. So get the reviews first. You'll become more visible. Once you're more visible, then spend the $5,000 on the website, because the ROI is going to be much greater.
And that's a time thing. That's a overtime. I mean, you don't get, your ranking and your reviews, it's not a thing where you can just say, oh, you can call somebody in and say, okay, yeah, let me do that. I want 100 reviews. Give them a few $1,000s and bammo, you've got it. It's a thing that grows organically over time. So, and it kind of gets a little snowball effect, doesn't it? The better you get at asking it, better your staff is, the better they are at saying, oh, I'm glad you had a great appointment. Please go online and review us, or the ways that you make it easier. I know on the back end, it's a thing that you kind of need to get the ball rolling. Right.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, I always say to people. Okay. And the problem is that they don't understand that. They want patients like this. They're not patient enough. And the only thing that you can do tomorrow to get new patients, if you wanted to, is to do Google AdWords. Okay. So if you said right now, how do I get more new patients tomorrow, which I get a lot of, they want return on investment very quickly, is to do Google AdWords. But the problem is, guess what? If you set up a Google AdWords campaign and you're spending $2,000 on AdWords, if you don't have the reviews, the AdWords don't work. You still need the reviews to get the AdWords to be as really effective.
So they kind of work together?
They work synergistically. So I always say, stop your marketing spend until you have a steady flow of reviews, because you're wasting your money. So no matter what you're doing online from a marketing perspective, if you don't have the reviews, you're going to end up with ROI that's not as significant as you could be. So the reviews are the engine that is going to basically fuel the fire of the marketing. So
plus it's your message. I mean, if you've got 108 reviews, and really you're right, we are a reputation world. And while you're talking, I'm thinking of all the things that we do that are, I do a search, I've got 5 things, which ones do I pick? And I immediately do that. I immediately say, oh my gosh, 6 people and 5 stars. Well, I don't know, 473 people and 4.5 stars, enough people, it's more than nobody has that many friends and family, right, Len?
Yeah, exactly. Everything we do revolves around reputation. Restaurants, movies, you buy something on Amazon, you're looking at the reviews. You buy anything we buy nowadays, or anything we do is based on the reviews. That's what we base our decisions on. And it's word of mouth too. I mean, look, in the past, older dentists, they just picked up the phone and they called. Right. Now they may not do that anymore. They go online and look you up before they make that step. So we're a word of mouth society, but it's online. We call it word of mouse, not word of mouth. Okay. That's the difference, and even when it comes to videos now, you have to have videos on your website. We're a video society. There used to be called testimonials. I call them trustimonials, because they create trust. They create trust. And that's what you need. You need videos on your website. That's an expectation now. It's not you must have it. It's a rule. It's not an exception anymore. You have to have these videos.
So if somebody was, again, they want to take this time, use it wisely. What would a video look like? I mean, you and I, we're sort of in this world, and a little bit, it's that is a setup question. But I think when I talk to docs, they think it's this gigantic project. They need a camera crew, and they need, so somebody out there listening is saying, well, call my video company, my AV people, and they're closed right now. And, no, the videos you're talking about are with a phone,
you can simply have your cell phone. You can put them on. You can get a, simply like a selfie stick like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, or even you can use, if you want to talk to a team member, you can get one of the DJ2 Osmos, one of the things that a steady cam, just so you don't have a shaky camera syndrome. And all you need to do, one of the things is you can talk about like what you're changing when it comes to the personal protection equipment that you're in, the PPEs.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making changes, we're wearing, the new masks, or wearing gowns or a face shield, and just say, hey, come when we reopen our offices, this is what we're doing. Put it on Facebook. That's the best way to connect with an audience. So they don't have to be anything professional. Yes, is it going to be better if it's professional? Of course. But it doesn't have to be nowadays. You just get something out there. That's how they're connecting with an audience. There are so many dentists doing TikTok videos, and they're doing, all different types of resources are online, YouTube videos. Do something to connect with your audience. That's video content. That's the point.
And keep it just a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. And what I've heard people say is, and maybe you can, weigh in on this. A lot of times it's go to your practice, nobody's there but you, sit next to a chair. So you're in an operatory, you're clearly the doc, you're in the operatory but you're approachable. And if it's something that patients ask you a lot and you've explained to them, then talk to the camera like you're talking to a patient. Just explain things the way you've always explained it, so it's comfortable for you, rather than trying to script something and sound really rigid. Just talk to your patients like you talk to a patient every day, sitting in the chair. Somebody asks you a question, and you just say, well, here's how we do, here's how your cleaning works, and here's how infection control works. Here's why there's those little plastic wrappers up on the light. Or here's why we wipe down the countertop every time the patient leaves, or whatever it might be. But just take a couple minutes, explain that, put it on your practice's Facebook page, and just do that. Maybe I've seen some docs doing them once or twice a day. You can dress nice or be comfortable. Everybody knows what's going on. I mean, you don't have to say, you're not working today. Nobody's working today. But so don't make it too complicated, I guess. Is that fair? Is that would you recommend that?
I mean, I would. I think that's perfect what you're just talking about there. 100% so.
Okay. So review wise, so somebody Google reviews, Yelp reviews, where should they look for their reviews? Where's sort of the place to go look?
So Google 100%, Facebook, yes. Depending on what area of the country you're in, Yelp may matter. So I would say California, New York City, Chicago, Miami, Seattle, Dallas are the main cities and state for Yelp. Yelp is very, very geographic centric. So, I mean, in Philadelphia, Yelp doesn't mean that much because I don't have a lot of Yelpers near me. So Yelp is only not every city is important for Yelp. And that's because most Yelp reviews are not going to stick if you're not in a town that is very important for Yelp. But definitely Google and Facebook are important. If you're in Canada, Rate MDs is an important site. But other than those, I mean, some dentists in the U.S. like Health Grades. I've never gotten a patient from Health Grades. It's important for 3 companies. I think it's important, but I've never seen anything from Health Grades. So, but those are the sites that are important. So
Google, you control your, I don't know what you call it, but your profile maybe? Your
Google My Business profile. Google My Business.
Okay. Is that something that's easy to find for somebody who might be watching?
All they have to do is Google their name or their business name, and it should show up. If it doesn't show up, you'd be the 1% of person that may not have one for your business unless you're brand new, because it just links to your page automatically nowadays.
So, and then I think there's a button that says claim this, or this is you.
Own this business. Yeah.
Okay.
You own this business basically.
And then from there, I mean, you can spend money or not spend money, but at least you're controlling that piece of Google. You're controlling how Google sees your practice.
That is the most important thing, is to go into your Google My Business page. Okay. Make sure it's claimed. You want to add hours. You want to add some photos. You want to add some videos. Add your office hours. Add a link to book an appointment. Add as much content as possible. That is free real estate that's very valuable to you.
Yeah, that costs you nothing, right?
That costs you zero.
Okay. So from there, once you do that, then, and that's what you were saying, and you put your website in, and if that's not right, then doesn't matter how good your website is, nothing goes. So that's kind of the funnel that everything goes through that you control.
Correct. That is tremendously important. If that's messed up, everything gets messed up. That's like your Google Home is your Google My Business page.
Huh. Okay. And I think there are a lot of practice owners that don't even know they have that. They don't even know it exists. And it's
I think it's becoming more popular. So, but yes, there's some people that don't know it is this. Correct.
okay. So they set that up, and then from that point on, they can now start getting reviews. And I'm
correct.
Okay. So there's a link, I'm guessing, that you cut and paste and save and put in your email and drive your patients to, so that they can say, oh, this is, 5 stars, awesome doc, or, 4 stars, I had to wait 20 minutes in the reception area, which is also good for you. So maybe we can kind of, as we sort of put a bow on it, that's a good thing to do, or a good question to ask, how you react to that. So somebody posts something that says, I would give them 5 stars, but I had to wait 20 minutes. I think there's a whole art and science behind how you respond to that.
Yeah, responding is definitely an art and science. You got to be careful not to violate HIPAA. Like I said, even though HIPAA's restrictions are up there a little bit less than they used to be, I always contact the patient offline first. I don't try to do any responding, because if you fix their issue and address their issue, a lot of times they will take it down or change it altogether, because a lot of times they just want to be heard. So that's one thing I would do is take it offline first, email, text, call. Don't respond directly online first.
Right.
Try the offline methods first. If you can get it fixed, they may adjust it. If your last resort is to respond, don't get angry. Don't respond in an angry manner. Always, always apologize. I'm sorry you had this experience. Please contact the office to discuss your concerns. That's the best response to those things. Don't be defensive. Don't be argumentative. Don't call the patient out. None of those things.
Should you explain? Should you say, I'm sorry you were behind. We had I don't know, the electricity was out that day, or should you, I don't know. Should you get into that?
You can, yeah. So in my book, Raving Patients,
Yes.
I talk about the perfect response to a review, and it's actually from my oral surgeon. And the person basically was complaining that they waited 45 minutes. And the PR person for the oral surgeon simply wrote back, and they basically said, we're sorry you had this experience. On the day you came in, our server was down, which delayed our surgeries and our other consultations. We heard what you said. We addressed the issue. It won't happen again. Please understand that we heard your complaints, and we did everything to address it. And we want to know that your feedback was taken seriously. It was like the perfect response ever, and it made the book because of that.
Okay. So to kind of wrap up, I had one other question down here about not the mechanics of reacting or responding. And maybe that's a good thing. Make sure you respond, don't react. React is, screw you, this was going on. Or so I always think, somebody told me many, many years ago, nobody has ever won an argument with a customer. And if they really never won one in an argument on Google, where every one of your current patients and anybody who's looking for you in the future see, and you had a bad day, and here's this back and forth between you and a patient that just is going to cause a lot of people to click and go past, right?
Correct. Yes.
But these are very personal. I get calls like that where a doc says, oh my gosh, somebody said something. And my response, and I'm going to ask you and to help me with that, and I frame it in terms of, I believe people mentally filter through the reviews. And what I mean by that is, I remember one time my wife and I were in New York, and I always look at the negatives because I want to know what people are saying. And if I see 3 or 4 or 5 things, service is slow, I was here, but the service was terrible, I'm going to put some credence into that. Again, if it's one, I think, and you tell me, people sort of go past that and say, well, you can't do anything where you won't find somebody who's going to gripe about it. But the other thing is, along with that, is things that aren't even relative. So I was staying at this hotel in New York. We looked at the reviews, And one of them was a person who said, if I could give 0, I would. There's a construction site right across the street that's noisy and making all this. Well, the hotel can't control that. It doesn't mean anything. The hotel could be perfect and there's something going on across the street. So in my mind, Len, I just discount that. They can't help it. Now, it's nice to know that,
Right.
but it's not a ding against the hotel.
Correct. I've had people write reviews that my insurance is bad. That has no reflection on me.
Right.
So yeah, I think every review has to be taken by like a grain of salt, not directly reflective of the practice itself. I mean, there was a practice that I had spoken to, and I like to tell the story, where the dentist called me up and said, I have a problem. And I said, what's the problem? And I looked him up, and like, I think he had, if I remember, 27 reviews, 2.6 stars, which is bad. That's bad. Right. And all the negative reviews was about the person at the front desk. Okay. And I said to the guy, I said, what do you think you need to do? And the answer was, you need to fire the person at the front desk. Yeah. Well, he said, the problem is that's his wife. And I said, well, then you need to divorce her. And he hung up the phone on me. He didn't like that answer. No, I was joking, but the point is that you have to fix the problem. When you see there's a problem, you've got to fix it.
And this is a good, I guess maybe that's my point. This could be a good resource for what the problems in your practice. And if you respond well and say, listen, we hear you. Thanks for sharing that. We're making the appropriate changes. Is that a good enough? I mean, is that a good response? That's a good response. Yeah. You have to use the feedback constructively. And I always say that is that, one bad review about something, not a big deal. You get 5 bad reviews about something, fix the systems in the place. Right. Two is a trend. Yeah, 5 is a problem. And, the other issue is that, dentists get very offended, or they always say, well, that's a fake patient. That patient's not a patient of mine, because patients are not normally going to write bad reviews with their real name either. So they think that the patient isn't in their database. It's a fake review. Nobody's targeting your practice. Nobody says, oh, I'm going to pick this random dentist in this town and write a bad review. That doesn't happen. Right. But every dentist calls me up and tells me that review isn't real. I have about, I have about 17, maybe 1,800 reviews about my practice online. I've been doing it a long time. It's the main way I market my practice. And I'm not perfect. I have 4.7 stars, 4.8 stars online. I've got plenty of negatives. I have over 90 negative reviews, but I have 1,700 positive. So I have a very good mix. Okay. I can count on one hand the negative reviews that are fake, and they're legitimately fake. And I'll tell a quick story. Because I used my real name on a negative review I wrote for a business who did work for me in my office. It was a plumber who did really shoddy work. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a review for his business with my name. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think he did? Right. About 10 minutes after I wrote the review about his business, he wrote a review about my dental office, literally 10 minutes later. And how do I know? Because when you click on the person who wrote the review, the only other review that person wrote was for the business I reviewed. So it made no sense. The person that I had taken insurance, which I don't, and I charged $400 for a crown, which I don't. Total garbage. Right. And it called me Leonard, which nobody calls me Leonard. Mm-hmm. So, but it was such a fake review. So legitimately, I probably have 5 fake reviews that have been written to me about the 91. So I know that there's reviews that are real about me. I mean, but they're fake names. They're just real. So people have to understand, and dentists out there listening, that when you get a fake review, read what the review says and fix the problems. And I think even if you can't fix that, anybody, I guess that's my point, people who are looking, even me, when I look at your negatives, I'm looking for a trend. So if they're all over the map, I just discount it and say. 100% so. Yeah, if you didn't have those, and that's like I said, I look for a trend. If you've got 90 that have spent an hour in the waiting room and they're mad and they're writing it from there, or, a problem with the front desk, people are going to give that some credibility. But otherwise, at 4.7, that many, that's a slam dunk. So awesome. I agree with you 100%. Well, Len, as we kind of get to the end here, I always ask for 2 things. One, words of wisdom. You got a lot of practice owners hold up right now, and hopefully they are spending their time wisely watching us. And anything for them, anything you want to just share out to kind of speak directly to that practice owner who's stuck there right now and can't see patients?
Well, reviews are important. They lay the foundation for future things you can do when it comes to marketing your practice. So a lot of people spend money on marketing. I think one thing I didn't mention was that, during COVID, you should have turned off some of the paid advertising you're doing. Once we go back to working, you want to ramp that stuff up. Marketing right now is very inexpensive. Just because Google and Facebook, a lot of businesses turn stuff off. So now is a great time to start spending some money if you have it. I know people were concerned about not bringing funds in, but now is the time to ramp it back up again. But you have to have the reviews. If you don't have the reviews, you're wasting your money. Simple as that. So focus on the review generation, get reviews. It will increase the ROI that you are getting from your marketing spend. And I work with thousands and thousands and thousands of dentists. I speak to thousands of dentists a year, so I know the trends. I mean, this is what I'm passionate about. So if you have questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. You can check out my book. It's available on Kindle. You can get it from me directly. I can give you my contact information, but it's called Raving Patients. It's the definitive guide to using reputation marketing to attract hundreds of new patients. That's what it's based on. So this is the guidebook that you need to learn how to use this stuff to get new patients to come into your practice.
So, and also, so if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Easiest way is my email is Len, L-E-N, at doctor, which is drlentau.com. So that's one way. I also have a little, what's called a Dominate Your Marketing Online. It's basically a way to just get some information about how your marketing looks. It's a free report. And they can go to Dr. Len Tau, drlentau.com. /DYMO, DYMO, stands for Dominate Your Marketing Online. Just a form they fill out. It will send me their information through a little portal I have, and then I can reach out to set up it's just an hour consult, no charge, just to go over their marketing, give them some suggestions. Just a way for me to get back to them.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Well, I see we kind of ready to draw to a close. Sorry we went over a little bit, but I think, Len, what you do is very important, and it's certainly important right now. Again, it's a thing you can do while you're, there is nobody out there who can't spend a little bit of a morning, go out and figure out their Google business page and get that cleaned up and improve their practice. I think 99% of people who are listening right now could find a way to improve that at least a little bit.
100% so.
So use that time wisely. So with that, practice owners, we're going to draw this one to a close. Coming back stronger. I appreciate you listening in. And until next time, this is Steve Parker, Dr. Len Tau, and hang in there.